All right, so this morning I found out that this video I put up a couple weeks ago doesn't have audio. Despite having 40 views, you can't hear anything from it. So let me go ahead and open up R and take a walk through the code I was looking at in that video. So this will be a little bit of me refreshing my memory. I'm going to try not to mess with the code too much. I'm going to leave it sort of as it is. And also, let me just check really quick. Let me just go ahead and, oh, that's fine. Okay, so didn't really change much there. Minor edits, commit, close, push. All right, so if you go to GitHub, you should have access to this code as it exists. Excuse me. Now, let me go ahead and walk through what's going on. I'll give some commentary, but like I said, I'm going to try not to mess with the code too much. So, my classic line, clear everything out. Let's go ahead and actually run this as we go. So, we clear everything out. Nothing on our workspace. We load in our libraries. Everything's good. And we've got our sample URL. This was for Dune 2, which I just saw this weekend. It was a pretty good movie. Dune 1, maybe a little more interesting, but we'll see. I got to rewatch it once it comes streaming. All right, strip URL. Here we are using the string R library that gets loaded with tidyverse. We're using this. You can kind of see that. I'm going to leave myself up here. I'm going to tuck myself into the corner. Cool. So we're using string R here to extract the tail end of the URL. We want to keep basically this part of it. So we're doing a little bit of regular expressions here. So let me explain this pattern. So we are looking for /title/tt, which is like we have in an IMDb URL, and then digits from 0 to 9 that happen 0 or more times and are followed by a slash. So this, if we do string extract on www/title/tt/whatever for this pattern, 0 to 9, we get that. Let's see. Oh, and we wanted to extract the slash also. There we go. So throwing in this made-up pattern, we get that. Let's modify this a little bit. So TT 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and it's keeping that. And notice if I change this to say 0 to 4, now we get an error because it doesn't have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then a slash. It's got something else coming first. So we're not going to dig deeper into it than that, just to say that what I've got here is going to take a URL, and it's going to take out this part of the URL. That's sort of the key part for IMDb. All right, so I got a handy function to pull out the relative URL. I will, let's say, build URL. The function of relative, I'll call it rel URL. And what will I do? I will say paste 0 https://www.imdb.com. We've got the slash at the beginning here, so we don't need that. We'll add on our rel URL, and that should be fine. So let's do, if I got this, so if I do build URL on strip URL on this sample URL, I get back the core thing. Cool. All right. So nice little helper function so that I can take this and turn it back into this, except leaving off the tail end, which is fine. Happy with that. And you know what? While I've got that, let me just really quickly push this add function to convert relative URL to, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm just going to say full URL, whatever. All right, commit, close, push, awesome. So now you have access to that code. So we can strip a URL, we can build up a URL, we've got both of those. Get page, get links. All right, so get page is just using politely and read HTML to get a link. Now, kind of annoying here, so let me show why this syntax looks weirder than usual. So politely is a function. What is read HTML? That is also a function. What is politely called on read HTML? I'm going to come back to this in just a sec, but I could ask, for example, what is, say, the sum of the numbers from 1 to 100? That's going to be sum 1 to 100. It's going to give me back a number, right? And it's holding that number in a numeric integer, a numeric vector. So we might expect that we get whatever this function returns. It should be something like a list or a function or text or something else. But actually what we get is we get back a function. So we ask politely on this function and we get back a new function. So we could do this way. We could say get politely is politely called on read HTML. We can ask what is get politely, and we will see that it is a function. Well, what do we do with a function? We add on some parentheses and we give it some arguments, for example, our base URL. So what we've done here is rather than create a thing called get politely, we have instead made a thing called get page that takes a link and passes that link into what is the equivalent of get politely. Right? So it's getting the page, but it's using the polite library so that it's not upsetting the server. Right? It's doing some things so that it doesn't look to IMDb or Wikipedia or whoever like we're attacking them. Right? It doesn't look like we're trying to break their server. We're just, we're scraping, but we're doing so politely, right? Which is a good thing to do. It's going to keep us out of trouble. So let's leave this as get page. All right, so we've got this function get page, which is going to politely pull information for us. Now, get links. We're going to take a relative link, which I've been calling a relative URL. Let's go ahead and change everywhere it says link. Let's change that to URL. I might have to fix some stuff, but we got our URL, relative URL, get page on a URL, get URLs on a relative URL. I might have messed something up in here, but I'm sure I'll be able to fix that. So this full URL, this is really just build URL on our relative URL. Right? So we had the same thing, but now we've just given a name for that in case we want to use it again. Our page, we are getting our page using get page, which gets it politely for us. Then we are getting all the links within the page, which we are now calling URLs. If I undo stuff, you can see that was links. Now it's URLs. No big deal. So we're going to get those URLs, and those URLs are going to be from the page. We get the A elements, and we get the href attributes from those elements. So have I got, let's call this, I'm going to call it Dune2, just because that's what it is. Dune2 get page on our sample URL. So here is the page for Dune2. Being a little slow just because it's politely doing this. It's not just pummeling IMDb servers. Then we can say page HTML elements A. This is going to extract all of the things in this page with an A element, and it could not find all for this function. Is that right? Oh, here's the problem. This shouldn't be page, this should be Dune2. Let's try it again. Dune2, cool. So here are all those A elements from that page, and you can see some of them are references to somewhere else. So here, this is a reference to home. So you click that button and it takes you to the home page. Here we got menu items, and these presumably will take us somewhere. Presumably there's some sort of an href in there. Let's go ahead and see what happens when we pipe this into HTML attribute href. We're going to get all these different URLs, many of them going to IMDb pages for shows and movies, sometimes for actors or directors with name/NM. So if you wanted to expand on this, a natural way to do that would be to start digging through not just movies, but also the people in the movies, which opens up some interesting possible projects, right? For example, seeing how we can connect two movies by seeing what people they have in common. You might look up, I'm going to pull this up on Wikipedia, 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. So you could use R to sort of do your own exercise in calculating degrees of Kevin Bacon, which really boils down to the idea of, for example, if we've got Elvis Presley, he was in this movie with this other person who was in this other movie with Kevin Bacon, right? So we can sort of look through those chains by going to a title, asking who's associated with that title, get a list of names, and then go through those names and see what titles they are associated with. And you can go back and forth between people and shows. But I'm not going to do that here. I want to do that here, but I'm not going to do it right now. What we've got is this list of these links. Let's go ahead and just modify this a little bit. Let's see what we get from here. So if I say Dune2 HTML elements A HTML text, now it's going to spit out. In some cases there's nothing, sometimes it's get the IMDb app. We can scroll up, we've got Dune, Oppenheimer, Interstellar, Kate Tennyson, so now we've got people, right? People and titles, and sometimes just link names. But yeah, let's go ahead and keep those URL titles. That's good, that's useful. That actually would be a way to make our CSV output a little bit easier. So we've got our URL titles, we've got our URLs. So what we've done with the URLs is we have limited them. So let's go ahead and do this with URL titles, where we take URL titles, and we're going to subset this to where we have string detect out of our list of URLs where we see something that starts with /title/tt. In the same way as we saw here, when we see something that starts with title tt, this is giving us a relative URL to some other show or movie. Cool. So we limited the URLs so that we're not looking at search or dunemovie.com or search URLs. We're just looking at these sorts of URLs that are going to something that we know we're interested in. And then we're going to use that same subsetting to subset the titles. In that case, we don't have the same thing we can look to within the titles, but we can look within the URLs to limit the titles to the things that are going to the sorts of places we want. All right. URL, strip URL. Okay, so that is just basically to get down to a relative URL and get rid of all this stuff at the end. All right, so we're going to take all these things, and for example, if we've got title, TT, whatever, and then locations, we're going to strip out the locations, That will leave us with some duplicates. We will use unique to get rid of those duplicates. All right, so URLs. We are going to strip out those URLs. We're going to sort of reset those. We are going to take the names off the URLs. And then we're going to say our URLs are the unique URLs. And our URL titles, and actually make sure doing this the same way, URL titles will also be unique URL titles. Cool. And then count is how many have we got. All right, so let's take a quick step back. We are getting URLs from some relative link. We take that link, we build it up to the full link to get that page, and then we sift through that page. We get the links in that page, we get the titles of those links in that page, and then we get rid of all the links that are going to things like, we're getting all the links that aren't going to titles on IMDb. All right, so we did a little bit of cleaning of our stuff. Now we've got this. Now, we've got title, which is where we're taking the page that we've started with, right? So in this case, Dune 2. We are extracting the element called title, and we're getting the text from that, and we're removing some stuff. So if we look at, say, Dune 2, HTML element title, and we get that. Let's look at HTML text on that, and we get the title with a little bit of extra that we don't really want. So we can use string remove to get rid of dash IMDb. Make sure you get your quotation marks and capitalization all correct. And now we've turned Dune Part 2 2024 IMDb into Dune Part 2 2024. Right? I'm fine leaving the year in there. But I don't really want that, so I'm glad I got rid of that. All right, so what did I do here? I took the relative URL we passed in, and I overwrote the URL, which, where did we do that? The URL is the relative URL. That's fine. Okay, so we've got a title, we've got a number of counts from those other things, we've got the relative URLs of all those things that are being linked to, and we've got the specific URL for this particular page. Cool. All right, I'm happy with this. So let's see what happens when we do this with Dune 2. So we are taking our original URL, the item URL is still up here, this URL for Dune 2. We plug this through, we do strip URL, and then we plug that into get URLs, and it does all of this stuff. And let's see what we got. We've got, ooh, what's going on here? Nice. So we got URLs. Are these duplicates? Oh, this is the URL from Dune 2. The relative URLs, these are all the other things. So let's add, let's call this link titles, which will be our URL titles. Don't forget our comma. Let's try this again. Run Dune 2, see what it looks like. It is politely going through, and we end up with a whole bunch of stuff. 210 observations. Let's do this like this. Head, Dune 2 with a capital. And so we've got the title, Dune Part 2, the URL count, 14, the relative URL for each of those 14 links. And then the titles, so we got a blank. I don't know what the deal is with that, but you know what? I think that this is the same thing, right? So a blank title in this case, I think we should filter this. We should filter out, I'm going to do this here. So I'm going to say filter minus URL double equals rel URL. Let's see if that works. Didn't work. All right, whatever. I'm not going to worry about that right now. I'll leave this as it is. But what we've got is now this thing that's getting the movie, and we can see that movie has 14 links, and we're going to have 14 rows for it with each of those 14 links. And then for each of those links, we have the link that it's actually going to. All right. So those links are going to go to a whole bunch of stuff. We could then take that list of URLs, feed that back into get URLs. So how do I want to do this? I'll go ahead and write. I've been going 20 minutes. I'm going to not write this function just yet. But what I've got at this point is on IMDb, I've got some functionality to plug in a URL and get back the outlinks. I do need to sort some stuff out. I shouldn't have release calendar or top 250 movies. If I look at the tail of Dune 2, what have I got? Privacy policy, press room. Dune 2, let's just check for rows 7 to 14. Links to showtimes, India Movie Spotlight, browse TVs. I've got some sort of a mistake in here, but this wasn't the problem anyways, so I'm going to sort of leave it here. I'm going to leave a note to self. To get rid of links to top 250 movies, press room, etc. So there are some of these things. I'm going to also add to do get links to people, e.g. actors and directors. But I'm not going to do that right now. All right, so let's go ahead and update our Git repository. We will commit. Check code, set up for next feature. I'm going to call this a feature expansion. Commit, close, push, and we are good. All right, let's take a look at the Wikipedia code. So let's remove everything. Let's call in our libraries. Now, let me walk through the code. I'm going to do a better job, hopefully, of not modifying the code. Let me start by just running everything and explaining as it goes. So rand page is to get a random page. Title is to take some page and extract the title of that page. Links is going to extract links from a page. Relative get is going to take some URL and add on the base URL. So if it starts with /wiki/ some title, this will stick wikipedia.org onto the beginning of that so that we can politely read that URL. And then nest get. Okay, I said I wasn't going to write code, but I'm going to write code because I want to get rid of this nesting. So we've got relative get, given a relative link, let's get this. So what do I want to get? So let's get, I got a recursive get. So I'm going to call this get links, which is a function from some relative link. The page will be rel get on that relative link. So within this function, we passed it a link, we downloaded the page, now we need to get the links. So the links, we can just say is from the result. Let's be careful. Let's call this out links. These are links out from whatever page we get, will be the result of calling the links function on this page. Cool. So that'll pull all the links that are going to Wikipedia pages. Cool, so we've got a page, we've got outlinks. Have we got the title for the page? Let's go ahead and say title equals title on page. Let's call it page title. And let's call this outlinks. Cool, so we got the page title, we got the outlinks. Let's call the link names. So for that, what do we want to do? We want to take those links and we want to basically get the HTML text. So I'm going to take this bit of code. Actually, let's go, let's make a new function for this. Let's call this page names function of, let's make it a function of, let's call it links and names. So we pass in a page, we want to get the links and the names out. I'm going to take this code, this should be fine. There's the links. The names will be page HTML. Let's just take all this. Do I want to do this? I'm going to do the unique part after. This should be HTML text. And then what do I want to do? Let's mash them together. So we can say, yeah, we'll say out will be data.frame, name equals names, URL equals links. And names, we should also say, are the names where we have string detect on those relative links that match our pattern. So similar to what we did before, we're using the patterns and the links to restrict some of the names of the links. Cool. And then we mash them together into this thing called out. And then let's say unique out. All right, let's see what I got in my environment. If I got an example URL, not yet. All right, so I've got links and names. I've got rel get. I've got the page title. I'm actually going to get rid of this and call this links and names on page. Let's see how that works first. So have I got something? Whatever. Okay, so if I go links and names on some page, so let's just call this example page will be rel get on a relative link, so /wiki/moth. Let's see if that works. It is politely getting this for us. We got something that looks good. Then if I say, what are the links and names for our example page? Rel link, not something something. Page. Okay, here's why. String detect where those relative links. Okay, those are the relative links. That's fine. Page. There's no such thing as rel link. One easy typo to make is to go back and forth between plural and singular. So let's try that again. Links and names on example page. And let's look at the head of the result. We've got a name, we got our URL, we got the name butterflies for the page butterfly. We might run into some issues here. Let's try a range on URL. And let's view. And So let's not look at the head. Let's get all of them. There we go. So I'm going to scroll through real quick and see if there are any duplicates on here. I'm seeing butterfly, cat, caterpillar, clothes, cocoon, silk. Ah, here's exactly what I was looking for. So I asked for a unique set of rows, and cocoons and the link for cocoon, and cocoon and the link for cocoon, those are unique. They are distinct even though the URL is distinct. That's fine. I'm going to allow those duplicates for now. If I was being a perfectionist, I would go ahead and fix that, but now is not the time to fix it. Let me get through the code first. So we've got a way to get links and names. I'm going to get rid of nest get. We got given a relative link, we get a title, we get link count, links, and the titles of those links. All right, so that's what we're getting from get links. And then recursive get. I'm going to do this actually recursively. So what I've got in this old version is just a loop, right? We are repetitively getting. But what I want to do with this, so recursion is a concept where basically something feeds back on itself. So you think about society. Society is a recursive process. Our economy tomorrow is based on our economy today, which is based on our economy yesterday, right? It keeps feeding back into itself. We're not starting from scratch every single day. In this case, what we're going to do is we're going to have a function that gets us stuff, and we're going to take that stuff and feed it right back into itself. And specifically, we're feeding back in these URLs. So let's call this recursive get is a function for some relative link, and let's use this example link of moth. And I'm not going to give specific numbers of levels. I'm just going to let it go once. So it's going to get links. So we'll say start. We'll call it out. Out will be get links on our rel link. So we're going to get basically this stuff out. Yeah, this is giving us links and names. That's fine. Do we need the, we aren't actually using the page title here, but I can use that here. Do need that here, that's fine. So I get the page politely, I get the title of the page, I get the links and the names of things from that page. Let's call this links and names. Is the result of, well, really it's just the result of links and names. You know what, let me undo. Where was it? Okay, so I'm going to change this a little bit. So links, names, it's going to be that. And then I will say data.frame. We'll call it title equals page title. Links equals links, names, dollar, name, and, oh, sorry, URL. And let's call this link name equals links, names, dollar, name. All right, so that's this name, this URL matches up with this URL and this name. Cool. Cool, so that actually, that's good for get links, so let's try that again. If I do get links on /wiki/moth, plug that into head, see what the first 6 rows look like. So that should be spitting out a data frame, and then I want to take these links and I want to run those through. So what I can do from there is I can say links to try is going to be out $links. And then what do I want to do? Basically, I can say, I wonder. No such thing. Okay. Okay. So here's how I'm going to do this. I'm going to use a loop over links to try. Or do I want to do an sapply? Maybe I want to do an sapply, get all of these, and then merge them all in together. Now, I'm just going to loop over. So I will say for ln links to try. Next, no, not next, it's a special word. We'll call it out2 is get links for that link L, right? So it'll plug in, say, butterfly or species or nocturnal. It will do get links the same way we did here, and this should, be get links on our relative link. Otherwise, it's going to put in the function definition there, not the results of calling the function on the page for moth. And I think I am supposed to have this slash at the beginning. Let's catch that error before we run into it. I'm not going to, on your own, take out that slash, see what errors you get. But I'm not going to learn that lesson right now. All right, so I'll have that slash. We get the pages for moth. We get those links. And then we try each of those links, adding a new thing. And then we can say out will be full join on out and out2. And we can remove out2 just so it's not floating around. And then we can return out. So let's see what happens. Recursive get on moth. And we'll see, this might take a while. An example there. All right, we'll let it run. So what this is doing, assuming it works, which so far it seems to be. Ooh, you know what I should do before I go too far? I'm going to say let's print L. There we go. So it's going to print out what it's getting next. So right now it's getting the page for moth, sorting out those links. Now it's getting the page for Lepidoptera. After that, it's going to go for butterfly and so on. But if we just let this go, it's going to take some time, but it's going to get all of those things, and it should spit them out. So just for the sake of debugging, I'm just going to modify this so it only tries the first two links, which is a little bit silly. But let's give it a shot. Recursive get, no argument, it's going to look for moth first. Fine, good place to start. It's getting the moth page. Got the moth page, it's checking Lepidoptera. It's doing that. In a second, it's going to get the page for butterfly. And then once it joins that, it should spit out a table. And if that table works, this table with 595 rows, fair enough. Oh, I should have named this. All right, I'm going to call it temp. So while that's downloading, let's scroll up to the top. It looks like we're getting these links. We have to go through a lot. We got a bunch of pages for moth, a bunch of pages for Lepidoptera. Looks good. Looks like it's doing what it's supposed to do. So let's, whoops, get rid of this. But let's take a look at what temp looks like. So we look to the top, we've got the title, we've got the links from the moth page, and we've got the link names. If you look at tail, we will see a different set of things. So looking at butterfly, we got a link. Here we've got some links we might want to modify. So anything that has maybe a colon in the link, maybe we want to get rid of that. filter that out in here, but we don't need to worry about that right now. What we've got, oh, you know what we're missing is the link count. This is something where we could do relatively easy. So can I do temp count? I've got 928 rows. Let's do count title. Is this going to work the way I think it does? Ooh, look at that. Cool. So can I do temp mutate count title? And equals, and let's look at the head. No? All right. There's a way to do this. I'm not going to worry about it right now. But here, really I should have built this into here, right, somewhere. But we can get to that in just a sec. But using count, I am at least able to see we got 261 links from Butterfly, 559 from Lepidoptera, only 108 from Moth, which is kind of surprising to me. But whatever, we got something. So let me just fix this one last thing. So we got get links, link names, and then let's go link count will equal, I guess what we can do, this is get links. So link count, this will be for the page title. So let's just do count links. Let's see if this works. /wiki/moth. Fingers crossed this works and does exactly what I hoped for, and it didn't. I think I put something in here wrong. I don't want that trailing slash. All right, so we're pulling down the page for Moth. I should have used for example page. Can't use count here. All right, fair enough. Link count. How do I want to do this? I guess we'll say nrow links names. So nrow is a function to count the number of rows in a table, and we're getting 108 for Butterfly. Good, 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 good. So just for my own sake, while I wrap this up, temp will be recursive get. We'll see how far this goes. Oh, you know what? We don't have it limited to the first two things, so it's going to be going through a bunch of stuff. So you're not going to see the end of this in this video. But let me go ahead and make sure I didn't leave anything important down here. So here, different ways of doing the same thing. Some samples, given that old stuff. I can safely delete all of this. Good. And then I could say recursive get. Cool. And so to really make this fully recursive, because this is really more, it's only going one layer deep. It gets Moth and then it gets all the things from Moth. But to really kind of keep it running, we could change this to, instead of get links, to have it do recursive get. So if we put recursive get in here, this is going to download all of these pages and then download all of those pages and then download all of those pages. And if you leave it alone, it's going to get all of Wikipedia. Now, realistically, it's going to crash your computer, but if it doesn't crash your computer, it would get all of Wikipedia. And it might actually leave you in an infinite loop where it downloads Heterocera, and then it goes back to download Butterfly, then it goes back to download Moth, or whatever the case. But in any case, we've got something that is doing this. It's spitting it out into a table, and then from there, we should be able to say, write CSV, example page, and have our output for this. So I will close by setting this up. Oops. Edit code to eliminate nested tibbles. Close, push, and now you should have up-to-date code. You can go on Wikipedia and go through older versions and see older code, but you should have enough to get you started here. Web scraping a lot of the times has to do with kind of getting through fiddly things. So as an example, it would be really easy to, say, leave that slash off, and then you might run into a problem like the 404 error that I ran into earlier when I had that over here, right? At the end, it didn't work. If I don't have it at the beginning, it's not going to work. There's going to be all kinds of little things, especially, for example, all this code that I had in here, that involved me just kind of looking at HTML code, trying stuff in R, and modifying and just iterating. So what we've turned into 4 simple commands, when I figured this out 2 years ago, almost certainly took me 20 different commands until I found the 4 commands that I actually needed, and then I saved the code. Right? So what you see is code that works. What you don't see is all the code that I had to write and delete to get to this point. So don't be afraid of writing a bunch of code that you end up deleting. The goal is never to write good code the first time. The goal is always to write good code eventually, and the only good way we can do that is to write bad code and then fix it. As you get more fluent, you can write better code faster, but you're always going to write bad code that you have to iterate on. All right, so we have got this walkthrough. Hopefully this is helpful as usual. If you have problems, let me know in the usual places, and I will talk to you in the future.